When will Jason Peters be on the field for the Dallas Cowboys? All that and more in this episode of Locked On Cowboys podcast.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your
Locked
daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked on
Cowboys.
Locked on Cowboys.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We want to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We are free and available on all platforms. Today's episode is presented by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. Pick 2 to 5 players, and if they score more or less than their Prize Picks projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on your entry. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. That is prizepicks.com, promo code Locked On. I am Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. He is Landon McCool. Check him out on Twitter at McCoolBCB. Landon, how's it going, sir?
It's game week, man. It's 9 months coming. We've waited so long, and you know it's we talked about it before. It's nuts how quickly this sneaks up on you, right? Like suddenly you're in the middle of all this training camp stuff, and then suddenly it's game week. So I'm excited, man. Well, obviously, we got some incredible news to talk about with Jason Peters, but just looking beyond that for just a quick moment, we have Cowboys football on Sunday night. That's pretty exciting for sure.
Cowboys football. So we've got a busy week. Tomorrow we're going to do your questions. We've got a crossover show with Locked On Bucks coming up on Thursday. And then as always, Lane and I are going to preview the Cowboys game on Friday. So make sure you guys are tuned into that. But let's
real quick plug too. We're also going to have the NFC East crossover preview that should be coming out pretty soon. We're going to be recording that relatively soon. So be on the lookout for that as well.
Yep. All right, let's get to the Cowboys news. So on Monday, the Cowboys announced that Jason Peters was signed to the practice squad. He actually participated in practice on Monday. I don't know if you saw the image of him walking out to practice without pads on, but he looked huge. I mean, we know he's a big guy, but he is a monster left tackle. What are just your thoughts on the Cowboys officially signing Peters?
Well, yeah, I mean, we were all kind of holding our breath all weekend long, and there's been a lot of back and forth about whether or not they could sign him because of the league office. I tend to think that, and I've kind of just suggested this privately, and I don't know if there's any truth to this. I kind of wonder if the whole reason that it had to wait until the league office was open because he was going to the practice squad, right? Like I wonder
possible. I think that makes
that specific move is what required approval from the league. So I mean, I think the 10,000 foot view is you've got Jason Peters on your team. I think what it's really doing ultimately is it's raising the floor on your left tackle situation. I think we'll get into it all of what the plan is, but obviously he's not going to be the starter for week 1. And I don't know that if week 2 is in question or not. I tend to think that they are going to let Tyler Smith go out there and lose the job, and if he plays poorly, then they put Jason Peters in there when he's ready. But I have to imagine that, now that they are where they are with this situation, they're going to want to see Tyler Smith go out there and play left tackle. And if he plays well, there's, I think we're going to have an interesting conversation to have by the time Jason Peters is ready to get onto the field.
Yeah, so Jerry Jones actually filled us in on a lot what's going on here. And then Jason Peters on Monday just even said, hey, it's going to take me a few weeks to get into football shape. He said he's been conditioning. He's been doing a lot of strength training, but it's going to take him a couple of weeks to get up to speed. Yeah. We're going to get into when we think he's going to actually be on the field. But just in case people didn't listen to our last week episode, what type of player is Jason Peters at this stage of his career? Because obviously he's not an all-pro left tackle, but can he still be a very good one?
What's interesting is that he falls under this kind of category of player, and you see this a lot with some of these players, right? That are elite players that, because they start out with such elite traits, by the time their traits start to diminish a little bit as they get older, and in Jason Peters' case, he's much older. he still has, kind of requisite athleticism, because diminished elite athleticism is still very good athleticism. And I think the way that guys like Peters make it in the league is not just because they have requisite athleticism, but because
Right.
they've played in the league for 12 years. They know all the tricks of the trade. So they're 40 years old, but they have good athleticism, and they know all the tricks. They know all the techniques. They know what they're doing on every single snap. You can't fool them. So I think Jason Peters kind of falls into that category of a once former elite player who still knows all the tricks, still knows the techniques that he needs to use, still knows how to like trip, hold, and clip without getting called for it. And that means that his career can kind of continue, because he's not the all-pro left tackle he was 10 years ago.
Yes,
but he's still very athletic, and like I said, he has all the knowledge you need for a savvy left tackle. So he like I said, I think what he's doing is providing a very soft floor for the Cowboys, at the very least, and then we'll see how much higher he can get from there.
I will say one of the things that I saw when I was watching him on tape last week is like the first 2.5, 3 seconds, he's still unbelievable. Like, he's just so big that it takes guys a long time to get around him, and his hand placement is so good. Like, once he gets like a hold of somebody, it's a little bit like Tyron, right? He's just not going to let him go. Where he struggles, I don't even want to say it's a struggle of his, but like the longer a play goes on, the more issues the offense has in general. And this is actually one of the reasons why it wasn't a great fit with him in Chicago. Is Justin Fields loved to hold on to the ball. And you would see, like, you watch the Bengals game, you'd see Trey Hendrickson just working and working and working. He wouldn't win right away, but he could win late into the snap. I think with Dak, who's really more of a pocket passer at this stage of his career, if he gets rid of the ball rather quickly, and he does, I don't think you're going to see very many issues with Jason Peters. I just don't.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, again, he needs to get up to speed a little bit. We need to see where he is. But I do think that at the very least, you provide yourself a stable left tackle situation, which, you can say what you want about Tyler Smith. I think the best upside for this offensive line includes Tyler Smith playing at left tackle at this point.
Interesting.
But
we'll get to that. I want you to say that, because that's a very interesting thing. Go ahead.
But I do think that the wide variety of outcomes that could happen with Tyler Smith at left tackle is scary, and that Jason Peters at least provides let's not venture to that low. Let's put Jason Peters in, and then we'll kind of go from there.
So I want to talk about when we can expect Jason Peters to get on the field. But before we do that, I want to tell you about Prize Picks. It's so simple. All you have to do is pick 2 to 5 players, and if they score more or less than their Prize Picks projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. No competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections available. Prize Picks offers projections on just about any sport you watch. That includes, are you ready? NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, PGA, college football, men's college basketball, women's college basketball, soccer, WNBA, esports, NASCAR, tennis, MMA, boxing, disc golf, Euro basketball, cricket, and more. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. They're currently operational in over 30 states in Canada, so check out to see if you can play Prize Picks today. All you have to do, download the Prize Pick app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. So that means if you deposit $100, Prize Pick will give you $100. If you deposit $50, they'll give you $50. Don't forget to use promo code LOCKEDON at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. All right. So on 105.3, The Fan today, Jerry Jones was talking about when we can expect Jason Peters to be on the field. And he said something interesting about Peters and Malik Hooker. He said, don't be surprised if we kind of use the Malik Hooker plan to get Peters on the field. So I went back and looked. He was inactive in week 1. Week 2 and week 3, he played like 30% of the snaps on defense. And then all of a sudden in week 4, it rose dramatically. Do you think we could see something like that with Peters, where he doesn't play week 1, but week 2, week 3, they just get him on the field for 15, 20 snaps, and then by week 4, he's a full-time starter?
I mean, yeah, if the plan is to get him out on the field and make him the full-time starter, I think that seems like a very good ramp-up plan. You get him 2 weeks of solid practice. You get him on the field for a limited situation. The Cowboys have, they've got a lot of experience in getting 6 offensive linemen on the field, so that shouldn't be too much of an issue if they wanted to bring him out like that. If they wanted to rotate him in with Tyler Smith, those are things that they could do.
I wonder if they just give him series, right?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I think that works, right? You get him kind of a slow ramp up in stages, and I think that's probably best for a guy who's kind of an advanced age at this point. I mean, 40 years old.
I'm gonna say you're at an advanced age, Landon.
Yeah, I'm very much at an advanced age. Certainly too advanced to be doing this. I mean, it's just like we talk about Tom Brady, and like he's such a crazy exception to the rule. Like the idea of a 40-year-old offensive lineman. Again, it's going against some of the best athletes in the world. You give him a little bit of ramp up time to kind of get used to the speed of things again.
All right, my next question for you is how well or how bad would Tyler Smith have to perform in order to keep his job at left tackle? Like, what would you need to see from him on the left side? You'd be like, you know what? Let's maybe not put Jason Peters in at left tackle. Let's keep him as a backup for now.
I think if the Cowboys have a good game against the Bucs, if Smith, gives up maybe a sack, or one penalty or something, like, that's kind of my line of good and bad, right? Like if he could do better than that, no sacks, obviously, and no penalties, that's incredible. Definitely, you're going to keep him in for week 2. If he's doing that, that's kind of what I would expect. That's what I'm calling as my expectation for the game, right? But if he does worse than that and it just doesn't look like it's working out and he's not able to translate the technique, I mean, I think honestly, like we have to see it. Like, I mean,
and that was going to be my point. Like, I kind of feel like everybody will know. Like, you'll know if it's good or bad, right?
Yeah. And if it's close enough, I mean, the tie goes to the runner sort of situation. I think that they're going to give Tyler the benefit of a doubt to get another opportunity, right? But I think if he gets through the first 2 weeks and plays well, against 2 decent pass rushers, I think you're at least having the conversation on exactly what this timeline looks like, what the long-term situation is. I think it's, and the thing that's going to make it even more difficult, right, is that it's not just about these 2 players. It's about Connor McGovern as well, right?
Exactly. And that's what's so tricky here. It's like, how do you navigate what's the best 5 on the field, but also your best 6, right? Because if you put Tyler Smith at guard and you put Jason Peters at left tackle, you're right back to the same problem of not having a swing tackle again on game days. Yes, you could move Tyler Smith over to left tackle if something were to happen to Jason Peters, but I would think that the Cowboys would like to give him as many snaps in practice to get ready for that kind of stuff. So what if McGovern plays really well? There's just so many moving pieces here.
And that's honestly why I think that's why I say that I think the upside play here, if you're talking about the pure upside, like what's the best case scenario, is that Tyler Smith grabs that left tackle job and doesn't give it up for another 15 years.
Yeah,
like
I agree.
Like that's the best case scenario, because then if McGovern can like step up and continue to improve, and I think we've seen improvement from McGovern during the preseason. It took a while, but I think he got there. And I think if you can get him playing left guard the way he played right guard last year, I think that's the best potential outcome of where this offensive line could be in a few weeks from now, but by midseason. I don't know if that's completely realistic. And again, I think that's why the Jason Peters signing is so great, because it gives you options. But I think that if we're talking about, there's been so much talk about Jason Peters getting signed and when are we inserting him into the starting lineup. And I think that we've kind of ruled out the idea that this guy that we drafted to play offensive tackle eventually, I understand he wasn't necessarily supposed to play this year, but the guy that we drafted to play offensive tackle eventually has a really good rookie year, comes out with some solid play and takes that job and doesn't let it go. I think we need to allow for that it being inside the realm of possibilities, and that could be the best thing for this team.
All right, I've got 2 more scenarios I want to talk about with the Cowboys offensive line. One good, one bad. Before we do that, I'll tell you about Built Bar. If you haven't tried the Built Bar Puffs yet, you are depriving yourself of one of life's greatest joys. And guess what? We've got a new flavor. Are you ready? It's absolutely delicious. It's indulgent cookie dough covered in chocolate. That's right. Built has done it again. Allow us to introduce to you the cookie dough chunk puffs. They have a light and chewy texture, real cookie dough chunks, and of course, they are covered in 100% real chocolate. All the joys of eating cookie dough without the hassle of making it. Plus, they're good for you. So you're going to want to eat them. Only 160 calories, a whopping 15 grams of protein. Run to built.com to snag a box for you and the family. It's the absolute perfect treat. Like all Built bars, the new cookie dough chunk puff is covered in 100% real chocolate. They're healthy and tasty. You can't beat that combination. Go to built.com and use promo code LOCK15 to get 15% off your next order. Use promo code, again, it's locked on 15. Should repeat that, locked on 15 to get 15% off your next order. All right. Couple scenarios for the Cowboys. What if Connor McGovern is so good that the Cowboys can't take him off the field? I know this is probably pretty unlikely, but what if everything's finally clicked? Like it's just clear he's one of their best 2 or 3 offensive linemen. He's not allowing any pressures. He's become a pretty good player in the run game. Then what do you do?
Well, I mean, then the question becomes, who's playing left tackle? And I think
what if Tyler Smith is struggling?
If Tyler Smith is struggling, then I think you have to put Jason Peters in there, and then you probably have a competition between McGovern and Smith at left guard, which, there's potential that he could lose. I think that
that's what's hard, because if McGovern is playing so well and Tyler Smith is struggling, do you move Tyler Smith back to guard just because he's a first-round pick, or do you just allow Connor McGovern to cook and you put Smith back on the bench?
I think that's a very good question. I think it's something that they're going to have to cross when they get there. I think it also depends on how Tyler Smith is playing. So I think it's a very difficult question. Again, those are champagne problems, man. Like if Connor McGovern's playing good football,
Now let's do the opposite of it.
Yeah.
What if McGovern really struggles? It's just clear left guard is not his spot. He can't be on the field, and Tyler Smith is struggling. Then what do you do at left tackle? Is that at that point, do you have to move Tyler Smith back to left guard?
Oh yeah, I think that's the easiest scenario. I mean, if that's the case, you move Smith back into left guard, and you move Peters onto left tackle. And then you figure out your left tackle.
I agree. That's the easy one.
Yeah.
What if Smith is playing well and Connor McGovern is struggling? Then what do you do?
I think you just ride it out. I don't know that there's much other choice you've got. I think some people will discuss the idea of playing Jason Peters there, but that's just not a realistic thing.
No, I don't think so. Maybe you try Matt Farniak at guard. Maybe
I would. I mean, but that's just me. I think, yeah. I think
I was gonna say if that does happen, you can survive that, right? Like a lot of teams in the NFL have bad guards. If your rookie left tackle is playing really well, don't move him, right? Now, the problem is if McGovern's struggling at left guard and Tyler Smith is struggling at left tackle, that's where they're going to have an issue. But if that's the case and it's just McGovern, I mean, we saw it last year. The Cowboys can survive below average guard play if that happens.
But that's why they got Peters, right?
Yeah.
Is that, is to prevent the both Smith and McGovern struggling at the left side situation, because then at least you can plug in Peters, and that gives you more options at left guard with Tyler Smith. So, I mean, it's the Jason Peters situation really does kind of help you give the ability to reconfigure this thing in the way that you like it, if after week 1 you decide that this is not the configuration you want.
All right. Last question for you. Week 6, Cowboys. Who is the best 5 offensive linemen that the Cowboys should have on the field?
I'm going to go with Jason Peters, Tyler Smith, Biotish, obviously the right side. I think
I agree with
Martin
you.
Steele. I think that, I'm presenting the idea that Tyler Smith playing his best football is the best situation for this team, but there's no way around the fact that it's a mighty ask. I mean, it's a huge ask to ask a rookie left guard to go play left tackle, despite the fact that he's played it in college. And I do think that he's going to play better football than we all anticipate. But I think if the idea is, I think that what we need to measure is how good is Connor McGovern playing versus what Jason Peters would provide as an upgrade, and Tyler Smith would then provide as an upgrade inside, right? And I feel like that to me is more the concern. And so if it may come down to, hey, Tyler Smith played pretty good, but McGovern really, really struggled. Do we really just need Tyler Smith inside and Peters to play outside in order to kind of get our best five out there? I think that that seems to be, to me, the most likely scenario, that getting Peters on the field, by midseason or earlier, and having Tyler Smith slide back inside. That to me seems the most realistic of the situations. And I think it will be a good situation too. But if we're talking about ultimate, best case scenario, the best case scenario is your younger, cheaper players playing incredibly and staying at those positions for a long time. The question is, will that ever happen?
My takeaway is I think Peters, Tyler Smith is probably your best combination. And I think that's what you're ultimately hoping for, because Peters can be a really good left tackle. And then you're just banking on like Tyler Smith to help open up holes in the run game, which we saw him do in the preseason, right? And then, if you get to December and Tyron Smith is actually healthy, Tyler Smith playing well at guard, you can plug in Tyron at left tackle. Jason Peters becomes your swing tackle. Like, I think that's what the Cowboys would like to have happen. We'll see. The good thing is, Landon, like, I think we've avoided like disasters. So, like, I think after week one, because I think Josh Ball is going to be your swing tackle in week one. It feels like for the meat of the season, as Jerry Jones would like to say, they've at least improved the floor, or they've risen the floor quite a bit at the offensive tackle spot.
Yeah, and again, like that's what I think that this whole Peters thing is doing. I mean, I think everyone kind of just assumed that he's going to come in and be the starter, which that may very well be the case in a few weeks. But at the very least, what he's done is risen the floor of possible scenarios at left tackle. You've kind of somehow avoided absolute disaster as long as Peters is healthy, and you got a situation there.
All right, that is it for today's show. Thank you for making Locked On Cowboys your first listen every single day. Now make your second listen the Ultimate Pro Football Preview 2022. It's an 8-episode extravaganza to get you ready for the NFL season. The local team experts of the Locked On Podcast Network, plus a betting angle from Lee Sterling of Locked On Bets, all combining into one ultimate NFL preview. Search for Ultimate Pro Football Preview 2022 on your Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get podcasts. All the same places that you get the Locked On Cowboys podcast. Check us out over on YouTube. You can follow the show at Locked On Cowboys. You can follow Landon at McCool BCB. I'm at Marcus _Mosher. We'll see you guys next time.